So I wanted to talk to you guys, just kind of, over the last several months, I've, like I said, I was doing a lot of soul searching, and that's kind of, it's crazy when you start to like really reflect on yourself and reflect on what you're doing in life. That can create a lot of, just a lot of things going on, right? Your mind's constantly racing. You've got all these things going on, and I was stretching myself so thin that I was just so tired, and there's times where I'm just like, man, I'm so tired, like how do I get this energy back? And I've really had to take a step back and say, hey, I gotta just kind of slow my roll for a minute and really kind of self-assess where I'm at, and really figure out what I want to do. And there's been a lot of great things that have happened in the last couple months that I'll share with you soon. But I recently got a promotion, so I'm moving on and transitioning to another position, so that's a great thing. There's a lot of great things going on, and a lot of different things that have turned around as well. And I was working on growing a business. I was working on this Breathe Motivation. Like I said, just spreading myself too thin, and I have to take some time out for myself to really kind of build back up, this energy and this confidence, and however you want to look at it. So I wanted to talk about these things that I really kind of like have hit me and are big things that I think I've had some great conversations with people, and they were very important things that I think a lot of us deal with. And I think it's really important that we've got to be able to manage expectations. And honestly, I hate the word expectations. If there's any word in the dictionary that I hate more than anything, and hate's a very strong word, and I know you probably shouldn't use it very often, but I hate the word expectations, because the expectations are really what I've learned. I've always had high expectations for myself, which caused a lot of negativity for me, because I was always beating myself up over things that I sometimes I would set out to do and I didn't achieve them, and I was like, man, why can you do that? You start that negativity talk train in your mind, and you're like, you start beating yourself up, and then you start being really negative towards yourself, and then that's when all the anxiety and panic attacks creep in, and you're like, what the heck, man? But I had to really look at that word, the expectations. I hate saying it, but I had to realistically look at that in the last several months and say, man, what are my expectations, and what are the things that I need in my life that are going to help benefit, really create a better life for me and my family? And what are those expectations that I have of myself? And, what are the great things that I do have? What are the great skills that I have? What are the great, just the things around me? I had to, really kind of step back and, again, you start to look at the things that you should be grateful for and appreciate. And, there's a lot of great things, that, I'm grateful for and appreciative of. And you have to remind yourself of that, because expectations of yourself and situations and people and jobs and families can really cause havoc in your life. And I found that the expectations I had of certain things, I had to kind of dial those back and reel them back and say, man, maybe those are really unrealistic, or maybe those people that I have, those maybe these people that I maybe conflictions I have with people, complications that I have with relationships, maybe it's the expectations I have of moving forward, and those are maybe holding that back, creating that complacency within. And I had to say, hey, how do I get relationships better? How do I have better relationships with my family? Because that was something I've struggled with throughout my whole life, is how do I have these, and I always tell you I'm going to be upfront with you guys and be honest and be vulnerable, right? And, I haven't always had the greatest relationship with my mom. And it was a conversation that we had, we hadn't talked in a long time, and, almost a year. And I'm sure I'm going to hear it from, maybe some listeners are like, how can you not text your mom? But it comes down to that situation of, you've got to be able to reflect on yourself and look at yourself and say, hey, are these things, I had to look at the expectations that I had for my mom, and the expectations that I had and out of the relationship that I wanted. And, it was an interesting thing when I really had to, when we really had that conversation. It was like a breakthrough. It was like one of the best conversations we had, because we both had to kind of like look at it. And a lot of the things that we both feel about maybe our childhoods, are very similar in a fact, right? They didn't all happen the same way or transpire the same way. But when we looked at it, we both kind of felt the same way, which was kind of weird. But it was such a great breakthrough, because we had this opportunity to like really kind of meet each other where we are. and really, and this time really hear and listen to each other and say, hey, is this what we want, or what do we want out of this? Or hey, maybe we need to take the expectations that we have of each other and just go day by day, instead of having these expectations of having this great relationship with and maybe just rebuilding. And it sounds weird that you would have that conversation with a really close family member, like your mom or your dad, or however that works. But I felt like that was something that was a great breakthrough for us, and I think it's a great building block for letting go of those expectations. And when I told her the expectation word, it was kind of, she's like, yeah, it's a trigger for me too. I always had this expectation that I gotta be strong, I gotta do the best I can, and that's how I always felt too growing up. And it was just kind of one of those things that we kind of we met each other where we were, and really listened to each other, and I thought it was a great thing. So one of those things that we have to do to have better relationships is just like letting go of all previous feelings and emotions. Like, you can have those and allow those, and look at those, but use those as building blocks instead of holding on to like the grudges or the feelings, because those feelings always will lead to like disappointments, because you're holding these expectations that maybe aren't realistic of yourself, or maybe realistic of your family or your friends or your coworkers or your boss, or however that looks. You can always have those previous feelings and look at those, but you've got to be able to release those at some point. And I think that's something that has helped me along the way in the last several years, and even the last couple months with my anxiety and my panic attacks and things like that. I just had to let go of expectations that I had of myself and say, hey, I am the best I can be, and I'll continue to get better. But instead of chasing, and this is one of the things that I learned in the last couple months, and even in the last week or so, it just kind of hit me in the head and said, hey, hey, look at this, right? You've got to be able to let go of those expectations. But one of the things I did learn was, I had to say, hey, it's okay if you're not where you need to be, or, hey, you can be happy now. You don't have to be happy later when you get that promotion, or, hey, you're making more money now. You can be happy. You can be happy and grateful and have a great attitude now versus waiting for future, benefits, right? That's what creates that anxiety and panic for me, is, really thinking so far into the future, like, I gotta do this now so I can live a better life, or my family can live a better life. And it creates this chaos around you, right? And I don't know if any of you guys deal with anxiety and stress, and I'm sure we all deal with that at some point, but we've got to be able to let go of those things and really focus on the present. And I know that's a big theme for this Breathe Motivation. We've got to be able to let go of those expectations of people, your friends. I look at sometimes, there's times I probably let down friends, but I don't mean to let them down, and there's times that they maybe let me down, but that's the expectations we have of each other. You've got to be able to limit those expectations, be able to live life day to day, live it minute by minute, hour by hour. Things can change, right? Things are going to change, but when you start to build little by little each day or each minute, it starts to create that positive momentum and move forward for you. Things don't happen overnight. They happen through the progress of what you make every day. So you've got to be able to do that and stop, focusing on those expectations of, hey, I'm going to be happy when this happens. I'm going to be happy when I buy this house. I'm going to be happy when I get that promotion. You got to stop looking at it that way. That really creates a lot of chaos. And I see a lot of that going on with a lot of the people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis. If we got to be able to let go of those expectations of others, of ourselves. We've got to be able to love ourselves and say, hey, great job today, or, hey, today wasn't my day, but I'm going to make it a better day tomorrow. You've got to be able to say and be able to have that self-care for yourself and really start to focus on those positive things. And that was one of the things I tell people is, like, recently I started watching a lot more TV, and that's something that I never used to do, but I was just trying to, like, kind of, I guess maybe distract myself, or, kind of distract myself from these feelings that I had. But the news and these articles that are on the, everything with the government shutdown, and, and all of that stuff, it's very hard to hear, all that stuff that impacts people, that you don't even know. Or, even in my job, I went to someone's house that, they worked for the TSA and they weren't getting paid. And it's like, man, this is real life and this is affecting other people. And it was very hard to, feel that. And that was one of those things, like, I was like, man, I got to shut down the news. I got to stop, reading these articles. It's bringing me down. And that's what you got to do, is you got to be able to realize and kind of like look in the mirror and say, what is going on? what's going on? Is it these expectations? Is it, how am I, looking at things in life, and what can I do to move forward? So you've got to just be able to let go of those things. You've got to be able to find within yourself the ability to find that energy. Don't be so hard on yourself. I beat myself up all the time, and that's one of those things that's like I'm always working on, is to be positive towards myself, to have that self-care and that self-love for myself. And like I said, I've got to be able to, one of those things that we can do, and I know I'm working on, is letting go of those expectations of things that are supposed to happen, or things that you think are going to happen, because a lot of the things that you think are supposed to happen don't really happen, and you spend all this attention on all these things that really didn't matter in the long run, and created a lot of trouble for yourself. So don't be afraid to let go of those expectations, and really just focus on yourself, focus on the great things around you. Be grateful, have the attitude of gratitude is what they say. Be grateful for all the things you do have. Be happy now in the moment. Don't be searching for things that are going to make you happy, because at the end of the day, you're focused on all these things in the future that aren't bringing you that happiness and that gratitude now. So live in the present, be the best you can be now. Don't focus on all of those other things. Let go of those expectations of others, your job, or all those things. Those things can be changed, right? And if some of those things don't work out, with friends or work or whatever, relationships, however that works, you're always going to come through it a better person. Look at those things as learning experiences, and how am I getting better from this? Instead of looking at, one of the things that I always see is, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. It's all about how your perspective is on life and what you get out of it. You can focus on the positive, you can focus on the negative. Either way, that's what you're going to get, because that's how you're focused, that's what your perspective is. So be open to changing your perspective. Be open to, if you're struggling with a job, or maybe it's just not fitting your needs anymore, don't be afraid to look out there for something else. A lot of people stay stagnant in their jobs because they're just afraid to move forward. Just go out there and start interviewing. You might find the job of your life, and just love it, right? So unless you take those chances in life, and take those chances of letting go of those expectations of what you want, and really searching deep down inside of you of what you want, you won't ever get it. But just remember, live in the moment, have fun, do what you got to do to be the best you. And that's all you can do. So let me leave you with this quote. Searching for words here. What screws us up the most in life is the picture in our head of how it is supposed to be. And that's anonymous. So stop focusing on all those things that you picture in your head that it's supposed to be this way. It doesn't have to be that way. Just live life the best you can day to day, and things will get better. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Breathe Motivate. Like my Facebook page, Breathe Motivation. Check out the website, breathemotivation.com. Again, you guys can reach out to me on all social media platforms, or Anthony Hester at breathemotivation.com. And as always, remember to breathe motivation and exhale success. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you soon.